picked out the perfect Mother's Day present for my stepmother and then watched her expression change as she understood what it truly was. I was 11 when Dad brought Cassandra into our lives. Mom had been gone 13 months, melanoma that raced through her body faster than anyone believed possible. One afternoon, she mentioned a headache. 82 days later, I was at her graveside in a black dress with the price tag still attached. Exactly a year after the funeral, Dad arrived home with Cassandra. She worked in client relations at his investment firm, unsmudged lipstick, hair sprayed into permanence, the kind of woman who wears stilettos to other people's backyard barbecues. "She makes me happy again," Dad told me, voice soft but unbending. "I need you to try, Emily." So I tried. I carried boxes of designer heels into the closet where Mom's muddy garden clogs used to sit. I nodded while Cassandra refreshed the house, taking down family photos and hanging airy abstracts that opened up the space. I smiled when she paved over Mom's vegetable beds for a meditation patio, because growing food yourself was, in her words, provincial. For 3 years, I performed gratitude like a role I'd memorized. I showed up to her corporate nights out in dresses she chose. I fielded her friends cooing about how surprisingly poised I was for a teenager. I hid my grief behind perfect grades and a practiced smile. Dad didn't notice when my laugh disappeared. He was too busy letting Cassandra organize his calendar, his networking dinners, their couples retreats and wine clubs. At night, I slept with Mom's sweater under my pillow until it lost her scent. Cassandra made efforts, her version, pricey birthday gifts that looked suspiciously like things she wanted for herself. Candlelit dinner parties where she introduced me as our daughter to people who forgot my name before dessert. She announced a college fund and made sure every guest heard about her generosity. But when I got my first period, Google taught me what to do. When nightmares dragged me back to hospital corridors and closing elevator doors, the dog was the one who stayed beside me until I stopped shaking. The fracture line finally split during my sophomore year when I landed the lead in the school play, the first spark I'd felt since Mom died. Opening night collided with Cassandra's charity gala. "Obviously, you'll skip the performance," she said, eyes on her phone. "The Richardsons are bringing their son. He's at Princeton. Connections, Emily." Dad started to argue, then quieted when Cassandra's hand settled on his sleeve. "It's only a high school play," he said. "There will be others." I went upstairs and pulled out the small carved jewelry box Mom left me. Inside, her wedding ring, a curl from my baby hair, and a journal I'd never had the courage to open. That night, through tears that soaked the pages, I read every line. There were the letters you'd expect. Hopes for my future, stories she didn't want fading, advice she wouldn't get to say aloud. And then the last entry, dated 2 weeks before she died. "If you're reading this, Emily, you need to know about the safe deposit box. The key is taped inside this cover. What you find there will change everything. I'm so sorry." The key was thin and bright, the bank's name etched across the bow. I skipped school and walked into First National. The branch manager knew my family Mom's parents had banked there forever. "Your mother said you might come," he murmured, guiding me to the vault. The box held a USB drive, bulging folders, and a letter addressed in Mom's looping hand. "My dearest Emily," it began. "By now, Cassandra has likely woven herself into your lives. I knew about her long before I got sick." I read the letter twice, fingers trembling. 6 months before the diagnosis, Mom uncovered Dad's affair. She'd hired a private investigator who documented everything. Hotel bills, text threads, photographs of the two of them slipping into lobbies while Mom picked me up from soccer. The report was clinical, relentless. Photos of Dad and Cassandra in 3 different cities, screenshots that hollowed my stomach. "She's taking Emily to her mother's this weekend. Come over. Imagine when we don't have to hide." And Dad's line, "Sometimes I wish she would just disappear." That message was dated 4 months before Mom fell ill. The paperwork thickened. Credit card statements for restaurants I'd never heard of on nights he said he was stuck at the office. Receipts for jewelry that never appeared in Mom's drawers. A lease for a downtown apartment that didn't exist in our family records. And then the part that made the room tilt ledgers, showing that Dad and Cassandra had been siphoning money from Mom's family trust, the one meant for me, into offshore accounts. It wasn't impulsive, it was architecture. They'd laid the scaffolding for years. Mom's family built one of the city's biggest investment firms. Dad was a talented, hungry advisor when they married. She sponsored him, mentored him, made him partner. The trust was her inheritance and my safeguard. In the files, I found spreadsheets tracing millions through shells, fake client accounts, and doctored performance reports, wired through a dozen countries, landing in numbered accounts. Dad's signature appeared again and again. Cassandra's on most of the rest. And then the ugliest section. Medical notes suggesting that Mom's swift decline may not have been entirely natural. Abnormal panels, unusual prescriptions, toxicology screens she ordered privately once she grew suspicious. I started feeling strange after our anniversary dinner, she wrote. At first, just tired, then sicker. The doctors couldn't explain it. When I tracked symptoms, I realized they followed the meals Thomas insisted on cooking for me. Hair analysis showed elevated heavy metals consistent with prolonged exposure. Tests on leftovers from our fridge. Opinions from 3 specialists noting the bizarre progression. I can't prove it, she wrote, and by the time you read this, proof won't help me. But I won't leave you unprotected. Her countermove was on the final page. A second trust, silent and airtight, built in my name. The house and the business interests I thought Dad controlled already positioned to shift to me at 18. 2 weeks before she died, Mom changed her will with attorneys Dad had never met. What's yours will remain yours, she promised. The trustees will contact you on your 18th birthday. If you find this earlier, their numbers are enclosed. They're waiting for you. I sat inside the vault's little room until the overhead lights hummed and my fingers went numb. When I walked out, the world felt different, hard-edged, sharpened. I didn't confront them. I didn't run. I did something worse. I perfected the mask. For 2 more years, I became exactly what they wanted. Grades, clubs, helpful smiles at tedious fundraisers. I learned which words impressed partners and which charities delighted board members' wives. Then, in secret, I built my own case. Every time Dad muttered about a complex client need, I looked up corporate registries and traced where the money actually went. I grew Mom's spreadsheets into maps of movement. I put a wall safe behind my bookcase and filled it with copied contracts and recorded dinner table slips. He left files on his desk, because what could a teenager do with them? More than he imagined. Half a year after finding the letter, I called the numbers in the envelope. The team Mom chose, a forensic accountant, a white-collar attorney, and a retired judge who had been my grandfather's closest friend, met me in the judge's study on a Saturday afternoon when I was supposedly at debate practice. I told them the bones over the phone. The documents turned their faces to stone. The accountant closed his eyes when he saw the flowcharts. The lawyer swore. The judge looked at me with grief and a flinty kind of pride. Catherine was one of the best, he said. What do you want to do? I had rehearsed possibilities for months. Expose them and let the prosecutors feast. Vanish until 18 and collect what was mine later. Confront them and watch the house catch fire. Instead, I chose precision. Teach me everything, I said. Finance, law, governance. I want to take it back and run it. The judge nodded as if he'd been waiting to hear those words. Your mother left instructions for this path. For the next 18 months, I lived twice. In public, the accomplished daughter Cassandra could brag about. In private, a student in a quiet war. The accountant taught me to read balance sheets like crime scenes, to spot the tells and footnotes and reconcile cash that didn't want to be reconciled. The lawyer walked me through contracts, voting rights, clawbacks, and the exact statutes that would pry control from Dad's hands. The judge introduced me to bankers, regulators, and old guard allies who still spoke Catherine's name with respect. With Mom's attorneys, we readied the trust mechanics, the board moves, the timing. I finished high school a year early. Dad and Cassandra glowed as if they'd built me from scratch Yale admissions letter, scholarship, photos staged on the front lawn. What they didn't know, I'd been taking finance and corporate governance courses online at night, learning the structure of the firm they thought they owned. The board can't wait to meet you, Cassandra purred for the hired photographer. I thanked her and thought about the proxy agreements waiting for my signature in a different office. That summer, Cassandra announced she wanted to adopt me. You're my daughter in all the ways that matter, she said over overpriced salads. Let's make it official before college. I studied her face. There was tenderness in her voice, but there was calculation around her eyes. Adoption would give her a formal claim if something happened to Dad. I hugged her, told her I'd be honored, and texted the judge under the table. We gathered that night in his book-lined study. The adoption force's fresh financial disclosures, the lawyer said, sliding forms to me. It helps us. Your mother's trust remains immovable. The accountant adjusted his glasses. We've traced roughly 2/3 of the missing funds through 4 countries to accounts we can pierce. It's enough for indictments. The judge's voice softened. And the medical question? The hardest truth. The murder case was smoke without a match. Patterns, not proof. We keep that separate, I decided. Win the company first. Before I left, the judge handed me a small, wrapped box. Catherine told me to give you this when you were ready. Inside was my grandfather's vintage Mont Blanc, the pen Mom used to sign her first acquisition. I carried it afterward the way some people carry prayer beads. Mother's Day arrived. Cassandra loved staging at brunches with photographers, captions about our bond. This time, she planned a garden party for 30, complete with an adoption announcement. I spent the week curating my present, compiling timelines, printing exhibits, binding everything into something that looked like a keepsake. The cover read in gold foil, "A Daughter's Gratitude." When I handed her the box in her dressing room, she lifted 2 nearly identical cream dresses. Dior or Chanel? Chanel, I said, and watched her immediately discard the Dior. Open it now, I added. It's personal. She hesitated, then untied the ribbon. The first page was a photo of Mom with dirt under her nails, laughing in her garden. What is this? She asked, voice gone tight. Keep reading, I said. She turned pages, receipts, bank transfers, minute annotations. I watched confusion ripen into shock, then anger, then fear. Perspiration beaded under her foundation. This is insane, she whispered, but her hands didn't stop moving. The final section documented the restructured trust, the board mechanics already queued, and a note about tomorrow morning's meeting. Those offshore structures? I said lightly from the vanity. They're not as invisible as you were promised. Cross-border transparency agreements are a marvel. So are timestamp transfers and cell site data. Her face drained. Your father and I will want to consider my terms, I said as the doorbell chimed for the first guests. They're kinder than prison. She stood so fast her mimosa toppled. You ungrateful! Careful, I murmured. Your friends are here. I haven't decided whether to screen Chapter 3 for them. The open page showed her texts to Dad the week Mom was hospitalized, complaints about visiting hours, colliding with dinner reservations. What do you want? She hissed. Go host your party, I said. Smile. Tomorrow at 9, you and Dad will meet me in Judge Henderson's office to discuss the terms of your freedom. She looked toward the door, calculating, then realized every exit was a trap of her own making. This is blackmail. This is accountability, I said, with a little mercy if you earn it. The party crawled by. Cassandra smiled so hard it looked like pain. I toasted her influence with double meanings only we could hear. Emily has been such a blessing, she said to Mrs. Henderson. I couldn't love her more if she were my own. She's taught me so much, I replied, meeting her gaze. About loyalty, about consequences. Mrs. Henderson blinked, suddenly unsure why the air felt sharp. Dad texted that he was running late from golf. Fine. His present waited on his desk, a twin book with extras specific to his part in the fraud. Guests trickled out with kisses that smelled like expensive perfume and competitiveness. Is Cass okay? One of Dad's partners asked. She seems tense. Adoption nerves, I said smoothly. It means a lot to her. When the last car rolled away, Cassandra disappeared upstairs. I found her throwing jewelry into a suitcase. Going on a trip? I asked. You can't prove it, she panted. It's circumstantial. The FBI and the SEC disagree, I lied calmly. If you run, you'll meet them faster. There's been an agent parked on our street for 3 days. She sat, the suitcase yawning like a mouth. What happens now? We wait for Dad. Then we negotiate. He came home looking sunburned and satisfied, and then he opened the book. He didn't rage. He didn't bluster. He went very still the way lawyers do when they see a case closing around them. Where did you get this? He asked. From Mom, I said, with instructions. Something like pain crossed his face and vanished. Emily, whatever you think is documented and safely duplicated, I said. Including medical evidence that invites more than financial charges. He paled. You can't think I poisoned her. What I think doesn't matter. What I can trigger does. What do you want? He asked finally. 9 o'clock, I said. Judge Henderson's office. If you cooperate, you avoid prison. Later, I found Cassandra sitting in what used to be Mom's garden, a sterile white lounge set where foxgloves once grew. Why now? She asked without looking at me. Why wait? Because I needed to understand the whole board before I moved a piece, I said. What do you want? The answer I'd recited for 2 years didn't feel like triumph in my mouth. Dad transfers voting control to me under the original trust. You both resign publicly and continue as consultants under my oversight. The siphoned funds come home. I hold the criminal complaints in reserve. She gave a short, incredulous laugh. You're 16. Almost 17, I said, with a team your predecessors feared for good reason. Footsteps. Dad. Cassandra's knuckles whitened on the chair. He'll never agree. I straightened Mom's necklace. Check your phone, I said. He'd already read his copy. His text to Cassandra was 3 words. She knows everything. He joined us, older than he had been that morning. You didn't have to do this, he said. You could have come to me. Like Mom did when she confronted you? I asked. Like she did when she questioned the trust withdrawals? How did honesty work out for her? He had no answer. The firm isn't just spreadsheets, he tried. It's relationships. If you push us out, we've already stabilized the client list, I said. Mom's people never trusted you. They stayed out of respect for her. Cassandra turned on him. You said they were loyal to you. He lies, I said gently. He also forgot to mention your prenup. The infidelity clause leaves you with nothing in a divorce. Her head snapped toward him. What prenup? The one I photocopied, I said. Along with your ongoing hotel bills with Ryan Donahue from legal. Expense audits are surprisingly literate. Color drained from her cheeks. Dad's face went from confusion to fury. You said that was over, he muttered. It is, she whispered, eyes darting. Emily is manipulating. Projection, I said, standing. 9 tomorrow. Don't run. I have contingencies. I left them arguing in low, vicious voices. In my room, I confirmed the meeting with the judge and sent the dossier to my trustees with a dead man's switch if I didn't check in by noon. I barely slept, doors slamming, a car leaving around 3. Silence at dawn. When I came downstairs in Mom's conservative suit and pearls, Dad was hunched over cold coffee in yesterday's clothes. Where's Cassandra? I asked. Gone, he said. Took the jewelry in the car, left her phone. I'd prepared for that. She's not the main problem, I said. Let's go. The judge hates tardiness. The meeting was clinical. Dad signed powers of attorney, transfer of voting rights, his resignation. The judge's voice stayed even, his eyes glacial. These terms depend on full cooperation with the recovery team. Any attempt to hide assets triggers criminal complaints. Dad nodded as if underwater. The public announcement follows the script on succession and honoring Catherine's legacy. Another nod. The last document barred direct contact with me until I turned 18, funneling everything through the trustees. That's my daughter, he protested weakly. You can sign, I said, or I can file the medical packet. His hand shook as he used Mom's pen. When he set it down, something in his shoulders collapsed. Can I explain? He whispered. I've read your explanations, I said. The emails to Cassandra, the internal memos justifying the transfers, the board note describing me as a useful figurehead with limited authority. I understand you perfectly. The judge arranged a car to take him to a hotel. He could retrieve personal items the following week, supervised. At the door, he paused. Your mother would be proud, he said. I couldn't tell if he meant it, or if it was a weapon. I know, I said. 2 months later, I sat at the head of his former conference table. The transition rolled out as a family succession plan. The press loved the narrative of a very young woman at the helm. Dad stayed as a ceremonial advisor under contracts that audited his every move. He kept his freedom and a stripped-down life. I took what was already mine and installed the trustees as my executive spine. Yale could wait. I needed a year of real boardrooms and real fires. Cassandra resurfaced in Miami after 3 weeks and walked straight into a flagged account. 2 nights in jail convinced her to cooperate. She returned under restrictions, parked in a condo owned by the firm, reduced to a scripted client liaison role. The prenup did exactly what prenups do. Dad filed for divorce, and she fought until our attorneys reminded her that any public accusations would start with her. It wasn't justice for Mom. Nothing could be. But it was the future she wanted. Our company safe. Her legacy guarded. The people who exploited her finally answering to someone. Quietly, I kept pushing on the medical question retesting preserved samples, sending untouched items from her vanity to new labs, speaking with nurses who remembered the oddities. Still patterns, still smoke, still no match. Dad admitted the fraud in confidential settings and denied the poison every time. The cancer was real, he insisted. I never tampered with her meds. I wished her gone, and that's a sin I'll carry. But I didn't make it happen. I didn't know which version of him to believe. A part of me needed him monstrous. Another part needed one boundary left unbroken so I could remember he once taught me to ride a bike in the cul-de-sac. Under new stewardship, the firm steadied. We untangled Dad's shortcuts, repatriated most of what was taken, rebuilt trust with clients who had been sold fairy tales. I slept on the office couch more than in my bed. The house stopped feeling like home. I sold it and moved into a small apartment I could walk to the office from. Dad relocated to a quieter suburb with fewer golf invitations after the Succession press release made clear he'd been removed. Last week, I visited Mom's grave for the first time since I opened her journal. I did it, I told her, leaving wildflowers on warm stone. The company's safe. Your name is safe. I wish you could see. When I turned, Cassandra stood under a maple at the edge of the lawn with a small bouquet she didn't lay down. Our eyes met. She gave a single tiny nod and walked away. Some lessons take years. Some gifts open again and again. Every Mother's Day since, I sent Cassandra the same thing. A photo of Mom laughing in her garden and a note that says, "Thinking of you today." She never replies. She doesn't have to. It's the only language we still share.